Okay, now let's quickly talk about what's been going on in the country of Georgia. Now, in case you've missed it, so the Georgian government has proposed a law, which is being called the Foreign Agent Bill, and it has sparked some protests. Now, what is this law all about? Well, this law would require any organization that gets more than 20% of its funding from outside of Georgia, so foreign investors, they would be required to register as a foreign agent. Now, many don't agree with this proposed law because they believe it is authoritarian. They also believe it is influenced by Russia. It is also called the Russian law by some. And they also believe that Russia is trying to pull Georgia into its sphere of influence more and more. And some Georgians also believe that this law would be killing their dream of one day becoming part of the EU. Now, my first response to this was, really? Do you really still want to be part of the EU now? I mean, the EU is a mess. 27 different countries, all different opinions. They very often don't agree. Internal quarrels all the time. It makes the organization very indecisive, very ineffective. Also, economically, the EU is not doing well at all. They've aligned themselves with the US, which itself is also in decline in many ways. And by the way, the European Union is supposed to be run from within Brussels. Well, I think that's not completely true. I think ultimately the EU is run from within Washington. And the way things are going now, it's being run into the ground. You really still want to be part of that mess of an organization? But anyway, I digress. Here's the thing. Let's focus on this question. Why would any country adopt a law like the foreign agent law in Georgia? Is it really authoritarianism? Is it really because of Russia? And is it really hurting their chances of one day becoming part of the EU? Well, all of these things might still be true. However, looking at it from a slightly different perspective, you could question if this is actually a bad thing. Let me tell you a little story. In this world, there is a country, and see if you can guess which country I'm talking about. This country has made a habit out of overthrowing foreign governments, so-called regime change operations. And they're doing it basically to extend their own influence in the world. Now, they used to do it very forcefully. Take a look at what happened in Iraq, for example, or in Libya, or what they tried to do in Syria, just to name a few examples. So they used to do it very forcefully. Nowadays, they tend to do it much more covertly. Now, the way it usually works is they start by manipulating the population. This country that I'm talking about has become a master at manipulating the population of foreign countries. They've become a master at propaganda. And one very effective way of doing that is by very strategically investing a lot of money into that country, into media outlets, for example, and other organizations that can help spread certain narratives. So investing a lot of money. Do you see where I'm going with this? Now, once they've basically brainwashed a portion of the population, it becomes that much easier for them to get rid of the sitting leadership and to install their own political puppets that, of course, are much more open to their usually bad intentions. Now, I'm gonna use the word allegedly here, just to be on the safe side, but allegedly, this is exactly what happened in Ukraine. And what is going on in Georgia right now is eerily similar to what happened in Ukraine. And that's the answer to the question, why would any government implement a law like the foreign agent law? The Georgian government is simply trying to protect their country from bad foreign influences. And the irony of it all is that, with all due respect to these protesters, but it seems like they're actually proving the absolute necessity of a law like this, because it seems like they've already been exposed to Western propaganda. It seems like they don't fully realize the dangers that their country is facing. I mean, haven't they been paying attention at all to what is happening in Ukraine? Now, if you still think that this law is authoritarian and is wrong, then just remember that yes, Russia has a pretty similar law, but so does the United States of America, so does the EU, and so do many other countries. And yes, you could argue that there are differences in these laws, but the basic idea behind them is exactly the same. So the United States is trying to prevent foreign forces from gaining too much influence over the United States citizens. The EU is trying to prevent foreign forces from gaining too much influence over the Europeans. Russia is doing exactly the same, and now also the Georgian government is trying to protect their country. And I find it particularly hypocritical of a country like the United States of America, who is condemning the Georgian government for trying to implement a law like this to protect their country, when they themselves are trying to ban TikTok because why? Exactly. They're trying to prevent China from gaining too much influence over the United States citizens. Think about that.